Hello, welcome to our July 30th, 2021 Club Cubase live stream. I'm going to do a quick audio test, make sure everything is going through as expected. Give me just a moment. Hello, welcome to our July. All right, everything sounds fine on my monitoring computer. So my name is Greg Undo. I work for Yamaha Corporation of America as a product specialist for Steinberg products. Sorry, there's probably a little bit of confusion. I was traveling this week and I was on the West Coast when I set up kind of the time for the live stream, and I kind of put it for 3 hours later because I was in a different time zone. So I apologize for the confusion. But I work again for Yamaha Corporation of America as a product specialist for Steinberg products, and I'll be the host for the live stream today. I'm presenting from outside of Washington, D.C. and Alexandria, Virginia. So we'll get started in just a couple minutes. If you have not attended a live stream before, how it works is you could ask questions in the live chat, or you could submit questions in advance to clubcubase@steinberg.de. When asking questions, my ability to answer questions in the time that when people could ask questions in real time, it will sometimes be delayed. So if you enter your question in the chat field, we'll try to get through all of the questions in chronological order. So if we could try to not repeat the same question if you don't get your answer immediately, that would be appreciated. And if when asking a question, if you could mention which version of Cubase and which operating system that you're using, that information would be helpful in sometimes solving problems. A couple people just wanted to acknowledge, so we will have just quickly we'll have the timestamp of all the topics that were covered in today's live stream. We'll have that posted later tonight, but if you wanted to search for topics that have been covered in previous Club Cubase live streams, you could go to cubaseindex.com, and Jan from Stockholm does a great job with that. And I see he just joined us. And we have two people that serve as moderators. So we have Agent K, who I see is online, and we also have Jazz Dude. And Jazz Dude, so we want to thank them for their help in moderation when needed. And another wonderful resource of information that people have on Steinberg products, you can check out the Cubase Nation Discord. We will go ahead and, since it is the last live stream of the month, we will go ahead and do our Zoom meetup today. So we'll have about a 2-hour live stream, and then we will have a Zoom meetup, and I'll go ahead and post that link. Excuse me 1 second. So give me a second and I'll post a link for that, and I'll try to do that periodically throughout the live stream. Let me just see if it had gotten posted. So yeah, okay. So anyone that wants to meet up, those are always really fascinating, great conversations. I look forward to it every month. So we'll be able to kind of go through that. If you're attending the live stream live, feel free to go ahead and ask questions and introduce yourself. And if you're watching it offline, you could, again, always just kind of send your questions in advance. So, all right, so let's go ahead and, all right, so we see just, I think, we'll see if Randy Lee comes back. He sees he's going to be back in a few. All right, so we see some of the people. All right, and we see Matt Elliston from London, and we have Filter Freak. We see Jan, the Monk Beats from Italy. We have Soren from Sweden. All right, so we see Randy Lee. We have greetings from Malta. We have Taylor Sapp. Okay, so we had just a question that was emailed from Randy Lee. And I'm just kind of doing this from memory, Randy, but saying that if you had gotten the USB-E licenser, if that would still be working for you to take advantage of the update promotion going on, the Studio Week. So we are in kind of the final day or two of I believe it ends on August 1st, but if you wanted to take advantage and get a 40% discount off of going up from like Cubase Artist to Cubase Pro, you could take advantage of that. So, Randy, if you want, I'd be happy to walk you through once you have your e-licenser to get you kind of sorted out as well. So I'm pretty confident that you'll be able to get it up and running with the USB e-licenser, but we could take a look. Okay, so we have a question from Andrea. So we have question 1. I plan to update from 10.5 to 11 soon. So right now there is the 40% discount promotion. So if you have the ability, you could save some money in doing it in the next day or so. So the question is, I just want to ask, will my already assigned key command stay in updated 11 version also? Will the look and setup be the same, or will I have to redo it? So generally, Cubase 11 will look to your Cubase 10.5 settings and migrate those. If you wanted to, just make sure what you do in your Cubase 10.5 is if you go over here to Edit and then go to Profile Manager, just simply export your profile, and then you could, from version 10.5 if it doesn't, and then you could import it. So once you have Cubase 11 installed, it doesn't overwrite your Cubase 10.5. So your Cubase 11 will be running independently of Cubase 10.5. So you could always go back and just simply export the profile. But I think that you'll see that the settings will automatically migrate, so you won't have to do anything crazy with that. Okay. Okay, so we have from the Monk Beats. Is it possible to create a macro to make 7 shared copies of a selected MIDI audio part in one command, or do I need a logical editor, then macro assign? Okay, so let's say I'll come here. So if I want to do this, I think we could do this through just a macro. So I'm going to take this and let's see if we could do it from the key commands here quickly. Just do search for the command. Okay, so if I wanted to take this, so I'm not sure if it can be done. So if I just come over here, you can hit Command or Control K, click on shared, and then just type in 7 and hit OK. So, and if you're not familiar with what a shared copy is, if I wanted to come and just do edits on one particular phrase here, that these would automatically be affected in all of the other copies with that. So while I don't think it's necessarily just looking for maybe a key command for that, but once again, let me look under repeat. Yeah, so I don't know a way to do it in a macro, but once again, if you just wanted to select the event, hit Control or Command K, and if you have the shared copies, you could just put in like 7 and hit enter, and that would do it for you. You also can determine if it is a shared copy by this little icon in the upper right hand corner, indicating that it is shared. So you give that a shot. So sorry, you can't do kind of a traditional macro. All right, another question from Andrea. Can you please quickly show us how to customize the colors of the tracks? Okay, so once we come over here, you'll have under the project menu, you can go to the project colors setup. So I think by default, you'll have 16 colors. And if you wanted to customize these 16 colors, you could click on, if you wanted to, see the little settings cogwheel for each color. But if you wanted to just double click on the color itself, you can at this point kind of just change the color scheme. So if you want it to be more green and different hues of green, so you could do set up your own colors. So if you wanted to duplicate this color and also make it a slight variation, you could do that. Another thing that you could do is if you go to the options, if you just really want to click on the presets tab from the project color setup. If you quickly wanted the program to generate additional changes, you can say, okay, I want 32 basic colors and I want 4 color tints. So if I come over here and do that now, when we go to access our colors, we could see 128 colors kind of available directly there. But once again, go to your project menu to project colors setup. And at that point, you could just double click on a color and you could modify the existing colors like that. Okay. All right, so we see Jeff Sabelski from Chico, California. So, and if you learn something new, make sure that you also hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do that. Okay, so we have a question from Jay from Connecticut. So he only has 2 questions today, so you could have as many as you want. There's no limit. So question 1, can Cubase, Pro, Nuendo / Widorko SE, aside from different menu layout, do same things as Dorco? Want to understand streamline process? So, you could definitely do notation stuff inside of Cubase and Nuendo without any problem. So if you wanted to, come over here and look at, different parts in... so let's say if I wanted to come here and I can now look at these different parts. And if I wanted to see this in my score editor, we could come over here. Let me just switch to clef because this is probably going to be a bass part. So, if you wanted to do more notation, so I would say probably, from the workflow perspective, you could do a lot of, Dorco isn't going to record audio. So if you're recording audio, that's where Cubase and Nuendo make sense. I would say that, if you're starting a particular project, and let me just open a different project with some different MIDI stuff. So say if I wanted to open this project, so I would say that if you wanted to capture and start from a sequencer perspective for your MIDI data and then be able to, turn that into notation. So maybe if you just want to record in a timeline and be able to edit it and manipulate it, the Cubase's workflow could be, may make a little more sense. A lot of people want to see a blank stave, kind of like this. So let's say if I come here And if I wanted to see just a blank score editor and I wanted to enter notes in with my computer mouse or enter in with my with my MIDI keyboard in step entry mode, that if you want to start this way as a compositional process, at Dorico could have some advantages. If you want to start with, integrating audio in MIDI, that, Cubase has more sense, but, you can print out scores, but it's not nearly as powerful as what is in Dorico. So hopefully that makes a little sense. All right, another question. Okay, so he says from Jay, please demo use of expression map articulation logical editor to efficiently play MIDI notes with VST guitar with upstrokes, downstrokes, palm mutes, etc. Want to understand streamlined process. So it could really depend upon the actual sample library that you're using. So, if the sample library has that taken into account, you could do, you could work with all those different things. But if for articulations, but working sometimes with a lot of, but if the sample library is not really designed for that, it could be a little harder to get kind of more realistic stuff. But let's say if I want to go to, I'll just go to Halligan Sonic quickly here. And we'll see, I think we'll have some guitars with different like articulations and strumming. So let me just... think we could come over here to like an acoustic guitar. So a lot of times when you see the VX in the title, this could mean that it's going to take advantage of like different articulations. So let's say I wanted to find nylon guitar VX, or let's say I'll just do, so we'll start with this. So I can see that I'm going to have key switches here. So open, soft, dead. So if I play, and let me just... just did a new project here with that particular patch. This doesn't want to. I'll try a different instrument really quickly here. Not sure why it's not sounding. Let me just... But if we have, I'll just try one more project here and see if we get the articulations to... Okay, so let's see if I can... So see if we can just find this one particular patch. Okay. Okay, so now if I wanted to, so let's say if I'm playing this particular instrument, okay, so, all right, so if I wanted to switch between different articulations, so let's say I'll just sequence just a little bit here. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, let's say this has some of the different articulations that are involved. So we'll go just kind of play this part back here. And I will just, when we go to the editor here, what we want to do is just to import the key switches. So once we've done this for like a Hallian-based instrument, at this point we could go into our key editor, and as we go to the key editor, we could choose to look at our articulations and dynamics. All right, so if I wanted this to be open hard to start, and then let's say when I come here, I wanted to do maybe mute it. And let's see if we could slide into this and maybe back to our open hard. So let's say if we, so that way we could kind of switch between the different articulations. So let's say I'll just do a mute and then maybe a hammer directly here, and harmonics. And this is because the sample library is kind of taken advantage of. So that would allow you to kind of get more realistic articulations for like an acoustic guitar. But, you know, again, you have to make sure that the instrument is kind of set up to actually take advantage of that. Okay, let's move on. All right, so we see the Monk Beats wants people to smash the like button. All right, so we have a question. I have an issue with running macros. It doesn't work when I run it in one command, but works as intended when I split it up. Any ideas? So sometimes sometimes with macros, and if you're not familiar with macros, what you can do with macros is to actually come over here and have a series of macros that can just, at this point, you know, do different functions. Now, sometimes when you're running a macro, it's executing all of the different functions very fast. So, you know, it could go through fast, and sometimes different parts of a macro may need like a split second for a window to open or for something to take effect. So sometimes what I do with a macro is if you need like a little bit of a pause time, you know, you could just have the program do something else. So a lot of times in the macro, if I find that, you know, this part of the program needs to actually occur and the macro is doing it faster than when the program is set to open a window or make something active or to select a particular note, that if, you know, I will just program 2 steps in the macro that could just almost act like a pause. And that's like, you know, hit F2 and close F2. So just kind of open a window, close a window, and then you may have that particular function may have enough time to execute so that the macro makes sense. So you may have to kind of create a pause in the macro. So try opening, closing, like just another unrelated window in the background. I like to do F2, like hide and like show and hide the transport. And then often that will give you a bit of a pause when needed in macros. But if you have a particular macro, if you want to email it to me, you could send it to clubcubase@steinberg.de. Okay, so we have a question. Can you think of reasons why plugins, including Groove Agent's graphics interface, is slow and sluggish? Meters don't respond in time with the track. So often it, could be related to if you're, I don't know if you're on Mac or PC, but if you're on PC, if you go to your preferences, you could see, check to make sure that if you go under general, you could try toggling high DPI and see if that is having an effect. A lot of times stuff like that could be, when you get into, if you go to the audio performance, you can see maybe if the performance is cranked up or is kind of near the top, your computer may be slowing down. You could also, if you're on like a PC laptop, try going to your studio setup. And let's say if you go to your audio system, make sure that you have ASIO guard at multiprocessing. And on a Windows platform, you'll see like use Steinberg power scheme, that information is turned on, and that could probably help. Sometimes people load up, a really large sample set, and it could just be your memory is low as well. So those are some of the things you could check. Okay, so we see from Danny a question. Curious why the transport stop button in Cubase 11 doesn't return the track to 0 like it used to. Usually on the second click. Is there something I'm missing? Okay, so let me just come here. So let's say if I just do the transport stop. So I think what it'll do is come over here. So if I hit play, and I stop, it'll stop at its current position. If I hit stop again, it goes back to its previous position. I think depending on which version of 11 you're running, so if it's like running 11.01, that behavior may not have worked. But so make sure that you're running 11.02 or 11.03. Hang on a second, my son is just knocking on a door. Bear with me. All right, apologize for the interruption. Okay, all right, so we see from Joseph DeBeasy. It's great to see you on the live stream. Simple question. Is there a way to group clips so you can move them, edit them together? Okay, so let's come over here. Let's say if I have a number of clips. So let's say if I wanted to take these particular clips and always move them and edit them as kind of a single entity, all I'd have to do is hit Control or Command G, and that would group them. So now if I moved this event, I can move that separately. But if I moved one of these, they would all be grouped together. So think of like G for group. And then if you want to ungroup them, you could just hit Control or Command plus U, and then they'll all kind of move independently. But once they are grouped together, so just Control Command plus G, and then when you move any of them, they'll always be grouped together for editing purposes. So give that a try. Great to see you on the live stream. I hope you're doing well. Okay, so we see I answered John Costigan's question before you even asked it yet. So okay, so I just see further question on the macro says my macro is taking 8-bar loop and arranging the entire track. So far the drums work, but I have them as separate events, exact same function. It's curious. All right. Okay, so just see a quick question from Jan. How would Greg organize samples in a project so they are available in Media Bay? All samples inside project catalog. Samples are both in project catalog and an extra disc. Thanks. So I generally would always have, let's say if I do a new project, generally what I would do is to make sure that I have one particular preference here. So if I come to my preferences and it's going to be under editing audio, I think, and it's going to be copy all files to project folder, and this is under on import audio files, copy all files to new project folder. So if I have, let's say I'll just do a new project and I'm just going to specify the folder carefully this time. So I will call this July 30th. Okay, and I will open up just a couple of loops that will be in this particular folder. So let's say if I just wanted to come here. Okay, so now I have these loops. When I go into my pool window to check the audio file, we'll look at the path. And as we look at the path, we'll notice that these will all be just kind of placed directly into the particular folder. So as I double click, to add a new folder, we open up our pool window and they've all been moved directly into the common project audio folder. So, and if I wanted to look inside of Media Bay, I could come over here to Media Bay. Let's go home. Let's go to the file browser. I want to go to Documents, and it's going to be stored under Projects, Hangouts, and we'll go to July 30th. And go to the audio, and then these files are automatically in that particular folder. So any file that's been recorded or dragged into the project will automatically get just placed directly into this one common folder. So you could back up that folder. So that's probably the easiest way. That's how we do it. But again, go to preferences and make sure that, you know, on import audio files that you have copy all files to the project folder. Then you still have them within your kind of your loop here, or they're available when you go into your file browser as well. All right, great to see Michael Teams And great to see Jazz Dude on the live stream. All right, so we see how to change the question, how to change the main note octave of Midi. When I open third-party effects plugins, the main note is C1. It was always C3 before. So generally, you know, the MIDI functions in Cubase will just open up a quick MIDI track here. So it's whatever your controller is spitting out. So if I go to like a MIDI insert here, we go to my MIDI monitor, you know, so whatever. So if I hit just this C on my controller keyboard, it's going to be C1. But if I hit the octave down, it's going to be C0. Octave up twice, C2. So I'm not sure, you know, so it might be just your controller that needs to be reset. So maybe you hit like a transpose octave button on your controller. If you don't have that functionality in your controller and you need to do that, what you could do is if you go to the input transformer here, and let's go to, I'll just choose this to be local. And I could say we want to transform MIDI notes. And what I want to do is take value 1 and we'll subtract, you know, 24. So now when I hit a C1 on this particular note, that's going to be set to C minus 1. So, and then if I put it to minus subtract 12, it'll be C0. If I wanted to add 12, it'll be, when I hit C1, it'll transpose it to C2. So it's probably your MIDI controller maybe that got changed, but you know, Cubase is just looking at capturing whatever is being transmitted by your MIDI controller. All right, so we see Alan checking in from Columbus, New Jersey. Says, been off the grid, recently experienced blue screen of death. Computer is in for repairs. Leaves me with a laptop and no Cubase 11. Club Cubase salvation. Thanks, Greg. So if you have your, if you have your USB e-licenser, you could always run that. Install Cubase 11 on your laptop as well. All right, so we see two things that Cubase is missing for me: folder tracks in the mixer and moving tracks around in the mixer. So yeah, those are common feature requests I know that the planning and development team is aware of. So, okay, so we have another question from Jay. So question is it possible to use additional mouse buttons, other non-MIDI intended USB devices to trigger MIDI functions like talkback or drum pads? So a lot of times when you're using additional mouse buttons, they can basically just almost show up like keyboard, like an extended keyboard, like your computer keyboard. And then once you do that, you could try just to go into the key commands and set up like your key commands. I have just kind of a traditional mouse, but when you go to type in key here for a function, try just hitting that button and see if it's going to be captured. So most computer, mice that have extended functionality, I know I have like a Elgato Stream Deck, and we could set up key commands from the Stream Deck to execute different functions here inside of so it's basically seeing it like extra keys on a computer keyboard, but a lot of people will get their mice with extra buttons to trigger functions in Cubase like that. John Costigan says, if you learn, hit like. So we see from Tanmay, is there a way to get Scale Assistant, similar feature in 10.5 Pro? Because one plugin crashes in Cubase 11. So, if you want to do, so obviously the scale functionality was introduced in Cubase 11. So it's not going to automatically be retroactive to earlier versions, but you could try coming over here to the input transformer. So if you wanted to just, capture, you could say, any notes that are coming in, you could transpose to, a scale. So I want it to be into, D major scale. So now it's only going to take notes and then transpose them into the key, but it doesn't necessarily tie into the editing functions. But you can colorize. So if we have MIDI data here and we have a chord track, so let's say if I add a chord track, and let's say I want this to be D. When I go to my instrument track, we could colorize based on different criteria. So once we want to come over here, let's say if I just randomly draw in some pitches, we could colorize them based on the scale and chords. And at this point, we could actually just see that as we move different notes, that we could have these particular notes automatically be colorized based upon the how it's fitting within the scale. But if you needed to just do it on input, try just going to the input transformer. And at that point, just you want to say your MIDI notes and have it automatically transposed to particular keys. And you could also check with the plugin that's not working well in Cubase 11, reach out to that company as well. All right, so we have Stefan checking in from Sweden. All right, we see that Michael Teams is already starting to dispense ice cream, so it's always better with that. Okay, so a question from the question is it possible to record MIDI with lines, recycle, and use the comp tool to choose the best parts? Okay, so let's come over here. I'll just quickly add. Let me add an instrument track here. All right, so I will go ahead and let me just record some. Let's put this into like a 1 bar recording. All right, so I'm just going to put this into, so there are different MIDI record modes. So you could choose that you want to, and we could do, and there's kind of different options for linear versus kind of stacked. So I would put it maybe into stacked record mode. So let's say I'll just record maybe a different note. So I will come over here and I'll just put this into, mute the chord track. Okay, and I'll just put it into a cycle and I'll just add some notes one at a time here. Okay, so now I have these different passes. When I go to view the lanes, each of the lanes, the performance is captured in a different lane, and then I could just comp it just like we would with audio parts. So I could just come right over here and say, okay, I want that note from this one. So it really could depend on your MIDI record mode. So just try putting it into stacked and see if that does the trick. All right, I'm going to paste the Zoom meetup link again here. So bear with me just for. So we'll start that in about an hour and 12 minutes. Okay, let's go on through some more questions. So I just see any news on when the Softy licenser will be back online. I upgraded to 11 Pro, but can't register. So hopefully I haven't, I just saw that I saw on social media that the license server was down today. I know usually when that's happening that, it's a big priority and that we're kind of at the tail end of the promotion. So I haven't heard exactly when, but I could see if I could find out, and I'll mention it maybe to see if they have the ability to extend the license activation. So. Okay, so we have a question from the Monk Beats. Mixer console on a stereo channel, how to swap right pan to the left and reversal, how to automate left and right pan going to the other side and vice versa. So, okay. So the new project here is pretty easy to do. Okay, so let's say if I wanted to automate kind of the panning of this, I would select this event here. Let's go into the mixer channel. And there's two different panners, two different stereo panners. So you have kind of a balance panner, but if you click on if you kind of hover the mouse over it, you see a little drop down menu. And at this point, you could also go to a combined panner. So let's say now if I want to automate my panning, so I'll just click on my automation here. And what I'm going to do is we can now, if I move the mouse straight up, we could, narrow or widen the stereo panning. But, watch what I do. So I'm going to go ahead and start just a little lower. And if I continue to move up, we could kind of invert. So now when you see it'll change colors. That means that we just kind of flip the left and right channels. So let's say I'll just take it out of my loop. So as we come over here, so I just keep the left mouse button, and now the left and right channels are completely reversed. I move it down. Now it'll be kind of very narrow. So that's how you could kind of swap the left and right channels pretty easily. So just kind of make sure that you're in the combined panner and move it straight up and down. And you can see the panning there, automation. Okay, so we just see from Jay says, apologies for lack of clarity. When talking about VST guitar, I should have specified the T guitar. So let's go ahead and open up the T guitar instrument. So this would be inside, like counting in Sonic SE. It'll work in there. Okay, so now when I wanted to, so these will be kind of broken down to the different, instruments here. So you can say, okay, I wanted to strum up, strum down. So let's say I'm just going to hold, and let me just move some of my, so once I have the T guitar here, what I want to do, let's say if I have a particular part, so again, I'll double click and then I'll just come over here. Let's get to the expression map setup. So some of this may not be set up for expression maps. So let's say as we come here, I could play. So I'm just going to hold down a chord. So let's say we'll do. So I could do kind of like up strums. So if you wanted to, so you could do up and down strums when you start here. And then if you wanted to, as you hit these notes, you could kind of arpeggiate the chord. And then where it gets really interesting is when you start getting into the, different strum patterns. So this will give you, more capabilities here. So you can say, okay, I just want to go to the strum patterns. And I haven't played with this in a while, but let's say if you wanted to go to your strum speed. But if you wanted to just do solo guitars, and then I think as you come over here, you'll have, different slide functions as you work with this. And or if you want to do hammer on. So yeah, you'll have some kind of more options there, and then when you get into, so different chord options, and then you could have your own patterns as well. So once you start, getting into your different pattern options there. So, but it could really depend upon which mode that you're in here and how each of those will react. Okay, so it says question from Mark Swaim. Hi, I'm in Arizona, upgraded from Elements 9.5 to Pro 11. Then my Elements 9.5 disappeared from the e-licenser. Is that normal? I can still use it on my computer. Windows 10 desktop. So yeah, basically you may not see the license, but it'll still run the Cubase. But you'll still run your Cubase elements, but you did take that Cubase 9.5 elements license and you upgraded it to the Pro 11. So I think that's pretty typical. All right, great to see Terry Dean and Kai Wen Franklin on the live stream. All right, still reading through comments. Thanks for all the great comments. So we have a quick question. Does Cubase 11 Elements contain Vari Audio? So Vari Audio is in Cubase Artist and higher. But if you need to do vocal correction and vocal tuning in Cubase Elements, I think you have, if you go to the audio inserts and look under pitch shift, you'll have a pitch correct plugin where you could actually kind of set the external Midi scale. So if you wanted to come over here and say, okay, I want this to be, my song is in A major, that you could at that point have this turned on. But Vari Audio is in Cubase Artist and Cubase Pro Nuendo. Okay, just reading through more comments. All right, I think I may win the ice cream flavor of Frangelico Orange Ice Cream from Michael Teams. Thank you, that's very generous of you. Okay, so we have a question. Is there a way to join many tracks to a VCA group that I already created in my template? I use link function for routing colors and plugins, but I still have to do the VCA one by one. So let's go ahead and take a look. So let's say if I wanted to take Okay, so this is one question we had on a previous live stream that I had a brain cramp on was, let's say if I have a number of tracks, and let me just switch my keyboard here. So I have a number of tracks, and what I want to do at this point is, let's say if these are being routed to VCA fader. All right, so now when we play, let's say our drums, I have everything except the overheads going into my VCA. And one of the previous live streams was asked how to get like more tracks into that existing VCA. So if I want to come here, let's select these two, and I'll just go to my routing. So if you just kind of click in where we see this at the top here above the panner, let's see if we get both of these to go to link 1. So it looks like, yeah, so it looks like we may have to, do those one by one as opposed to like a quick link, but let me just try that again. So let me just, I'll just revert this again and see if we could easily do like a, all right, so I'm going to add a VCA to these tracks, and then I don't have, so I'm going to add a VCA to the selected channels. Okay, so that's controlling all those. And now, yeah, so I think we may still have to add them one by one, but let me just give it a shot again here through a quick link. Yeah, so I think you may still have to do it one by one, but you can add it to the existing VCA just by clicking there. But I'll mention that in kind of in the testing department. Okay. Okay, so we have a question. You used to be able to route multiple channels at the same time to the same source by holding down Control and choose Group. Now when I do it, assigns channels to 1, 2, 3, 4, not all to one. Okay, so let me just revert this. I think it's going to be Command or maybe Option plus Shift. So let's give it a try. I'll revert this. So if I'm here, let's say if I'm just going to add a group channel. Okay, so what I want to do is to select all of these. I'm just going to hold down Alt and Shift and send these all Alt or / Option plus Shift, and I'll just come right over there. And let's see if, so now when I come over here, it's group 1, and as we navigate, all of those tracks are assigned to group 1. So instead of Control or Command, just Alt or Option plus Shift. Okay, so we see from Joseph DeBisi, is there a reason why when launching Cubase 11 Pro, my computer fans turn on to high? This is just a blank session. So it could be if you're on Windows. It could be if you come over here to your studio setup to audio system. On a Windows platform, you have the option for turn on Steinberg power scheme. So that makes sure that the computer is maximizing all of the CPU usage and it's not being throttled like for to make longer battery life or to be green and eco-friendly. So a lot of times computers will shut down processing cores to be, more environmentally friendly and more green or better for batteries. So you'll see a little option in this area for use Steinberg power scheme. So you try toggling that and see if that makes a difference for you. Reading through comments. Okay, so just see, why can't I see the ruler on my screen? HD 1920 by 1280. Also, when I upgraded Cubase 11 Pro, a bunch of my plugins no longer show up in Plugin Manager. So when you say the ruler on the screen, so I'm not sure if it's the time here. So it could be maybe that it's as you zoom in, you see more of the grid options depending on your level of zoom. And there's also maybe like an adapt to zoom function, but depending on your level of zoom, so I'm not sure if that's what you mean by the ruler, but you could also try to right click and see if you have in the top time field to make sure that, okay, I have bars and beats or seconds, that you're in the correct time area. Okay, and then see the second part of the question. When I upgraded to Cubase 11 Pro, a bunch of my plugins no longer show up in Plugin Manager. So make sure that you have, so if you're in the VST Plugin Manager, so I'm not sure if they're VST2 or VST3 plugins. So VST3 plugins will install by default into a common system folder. But if you are in VST2, make sure that you go to your VST2 plugin paths, and at those paths where those plugins are installed are active here. And then once you do that, you could rescan and then see if those plugins will show up. And if they're, running 32-bit plugins, then, Cubase hasn't supported that in 5 or 6 years. Okay, so we see a question from Dennis: how to get a click audio track from the metronome. Okay, so let's say if I wanted to do metronome, I'm going to just set my left and right locators, like around my project. And then if you go to the project menu, go to signature track, and then you say render audio click between left and right locators. And now you can just have that as an audio file in between the left and right locators. So once again, once you set the left and right locators, come over to your project menu to signature track and choose render audio click between locators. Okay, so we have a question. How do you take the chorus into the verse? So I'm not sure if it's a chorus effect or a chorus effect. I assume it's going to be a chorus, like a chorus in the song structure. So let me just go to a project here that will have kind of verse and chorus song structure. Okay, so let's say I have my verse here. I turn it up, you wouldn't mind. What's mine and what's yours? And let's say as we come right here. So, if it's to the point where, okay, I come here and I want to do like a global split, so I could just go to my range and, let's say I just want it to take all of my chorus here. You could just kind of treat these different elements of your song structure. So if I say, okay, I just want to move this over here, I can hold down like my Alt key, and if I wanted to take all the parts of the verse, I could just come over here, and now I want to, we could just kind of drag this over and make a copy like that. So if you need to just repeat stuff, you could do that. But let me know if that's what you want to do when you say chorus into the verse, but that will take the chorus here and then just kind of repeat the verse. So you can just kind of copy the parts around. All right, so we have a question from Jay. Question: do Steinberg libraries like Hallian, Retrolog, Iconica, T-Guitar come with expression maps included? So generally, Hallian-based instruments can automatically generate the expression maps. So Iconica, T-Guitar, if it's using expression maps, a lot of times it's just kind of doing key switches. Double click here, and where you see expression map, just choose import key switches, and that will automatically import the key switches for you. So that's one of the great kind of advantages of being a Hallian-based instrument. Okay, so we have a question. Hi, from Indonesia. When I change tempo in the middle parts of music, is there any way I can freeze any events after the tempo change, especially when work with picture? So all you have to do is, if you don't want the events to follow tempo changes, so you could do it on kind of, if it's for audio, you could just take those events and not put them into musical mode. But you could put it onto, we could enable musical mode or linear mode on a track by track basis. But if you want it to, if they're on separate tracks, you could take this track and just choose for, when it looks like a little clock here, that would mean that as we adjust the tempo of these events, that they're going to stay at the same position in time. When they're in musical mode and we adjust the tempo, like we can see that the audio events will go. So just make sure, if you don't want the particular events, put them onto a different track and just come over here and put that into linear mode, and the linear modes are going to stay at the same position locked to the video. So All right, so we see Joe from Sao Paulo, and we have Neurotic Nexus. Great to see you on the live stream. I see Sable Winters is on the live stream. It's great to have you. All right, so we have a question. Can you please show us how to reconform in Nuendo? Nuendo tutorials are either too short or missing in action. So let's see if I have my reconform project here in Nuendo. All right, so let me just see if I have in my recent projects list. See if I have my Yeah, so the project I have has kind of has the EDL. Let me just see if I could just do a quick search. Hang on, see if I can find this project quickly. If not, I could show it on Tuesday's live stream. Yeah, I don't have that particular project that I could find, but if you want, I'd be happy to show it on Tuesday's live stream. Sorry about that. All right, reading through more comments. All right, so we see, can you demonstrate note slides in the piano roll? All right, so let me just... do new project here, sorry. So I'm not sure if you just want to do like a portamento or if you wanted to do just kind of like pitch bend down. All right, so let's say if you wanted to have, you know, this instrument come over here. Okay, so some people, if you want to do slide between those two notes, you know, you could do like a portamento control. Some people will just draw in, let's say, like a pitch bend. So at this point, we could just say, okay, let's look at pitch bend. We could match the pitch bend range in the editor to the instrument itself. So let's say if we have this instrument and we have our pitch bend set to -3 and plus and -3 semitones. So I'll go to my pitch bend settings and we'll say we're going to do 3 semitones, and then we could see our semitones grid. So if I wanted to now just kind of draw in some pitch bend data, I could say, okay, from here to here, I just wanted it to draw in. So if we did this right. So, you know, you could do stuff like that. But also when people are working with this, a lot of times people use this in like more of like for doing slides, and it could be a bit more instrument based. So if you have something like this, like we could do this in the sampler track, for instance, where if I just place it into monophonic mode and I hold down the first note and then hit the second note. So it's not necessarily a key editor function, but you could, you know, you could hit this, do kind of different pitch bend type of effects, but that's more dependent upon the instrument, or you could draw a pitch bend in. But there's different kind of monophonic glides that you could do. Okay, so we have a question. Is it possible to block MIDI channels only for the generic remote globally, like the input transformer does, but not project-based? So it depends how you have set up the generic remote. So let's say if we want to get into your generic remote, a lot of times people may just put it onto specific MIDI channels, so it'll default to MIDI channel 1, but this could be set to any particular MIDI channels. I'm just gonna so once you have the MIDI channel set here, and this isn't like for the project, but this will be global. So let me know if that works for you, if that makes sense. It's from Christoph Keating. So you just see a question from Jeff Zabelski. Will Cubase import key switches from third party like Vienna Instruments, Solo Strings, which has hundreds of articulations? So I don't think it's going to automatically do it like Halion does, but there are the articulation maps already available for most of the Vienna libraries so that you could download. So I don't think you'll have to actually physically make them again. All right, I'm going to post our live stream link. So we'll be starting in about 35 minutes. I'm going to post that one more time. And this is just a great area, a great way to kind of meet up with other users. So look forward to seeing people there. All right, great to see Tim Weinheimer on the live stream. Hope to see you on the Zoom meetup. All right. All right, so we see question, can I edit individual MIDI notes in Cubase Pro in the advanced score editor with the MIDI note length per beat, 0 to 959 in numbers to get bespoke tuplets that would... okay, so if we wanted to do tuplets, let's say in score editor, so let's say if I'm... I'll just go to the score editor here quickly. So let's say I'm just in like step mode. so let's say I was just. All right, so one of the things that you could do is, I think there's a kind of a build tuplet function. So if you go to the build end tuplet, so here you could say, so I think if you wanted to just kind of come over here and just say, again from the score editor to build end tuplet, that you could say, okay, I want to do. Have to be out of. All right, so let me just put in some quick notes. So you could kind of play around with this. So let's say I want to do 7/4. So you could try the build end tuplets function. You could also, if you switch, so give that a shot, and then you could do like septuplets over those particular beats. Thanks for all the great comments and questions. All right, so we see Graham Witcher joining from the UK. Thanks for joining us. All right, so just see how about artist and got Cubase Pro 11 license key, but currently license server unavailable. Any idea when it will be available? So I don't. I haven't heard. I'm sure that usually when this happens, they're kind of not taking the weekend off, and someone can be working on the server kind of round the clock to make sure it's going to happen. And they obviously know that it's towards the tail end of a promotion, so I'm sure that they would do whatever they have to make it right. All right, Greg, is it possible to show how you can assign aftertouch or poly pressure to control MPE, such as pan or pitch, trying to get the gist of MPE? So generally with MPE, you need kind of a controller that could actually transmit MPE. So, but sometimes we could mimic this with different MIDI control messages. So if you wanted to, I think let's come over here to So the controller I have in front of me doesn't do polyphonic aftertouch, but let me just go to like a retrolog instrument here, and I'll just do kind of maybe like a pad. All right, so sorry. All right, so if we have, you know, a particular, so let's say if we go to our note expression, that here you could set kind of, let's say, okay, I want to do panning, and at this point you could say, okay, I wanted my modulation wheel to do panning. So in this area here, you could just kind of set this up so that non-MPE controllers can use, you could use different MIDI controllers for that. If you do have an MPE controller or something like the Rolly, if you go to the studio setup, you can come over here and add a note expression device input. But you could also just come over here and you could say, okay, this MIDI message, I want aftertouch doing this, and I want pitch bend on like maybe the horizontal, but if you don't have that, you may have to set it up, you know, if you don't have an MPE compatible controller, you may have to just kind of fake it through using different MIDI CCs for note expression capable instruments or VST 3.5 instruments. Okay, so we have a question on Patch Shop 2. I have lost some samples from some patches. How come? I had demo banks and then they expired and I deleted. Example, the patches double phrase morph or dust voices are empty. So let's go ahead and see if I could load one of those up. So if it was obviously maybe like a trial version of a library, you know, and the trial license expired, you know, that could cause something like that. But let's come over here. Okay, so let's see. All right, so let me just see if come over here to see if it's in a particular library. Just seeing if it's in one of the libraries. All right, so it's in this Zero Gravity. So I think that this is an add-on products, and make sure that you have the license for zero gravity, and I'll just check the other preset. So you said double phrase morph. So so I don't think that those are standard. I think that this is an add-on library. So maybe you don't have so check, see if you have the license for the add-on library. And if you want to email me, I could just check to make sure that it is an add-on library, but I think it is. Let's see if I look quickly in our download assistant. Yeah, so I'm not sure if that is an included library or one that's kind of sold separately. So, but if it's sold separately and you don't have the license for it, that could be causing the problems. All right, so we have Steve from Pittsburgh says first time on live, trying video track and video player for the first time, imported free MP4 stock video, but it will only play for a second before freezing. Cubase Pro 11 Asus laptop. So it could be that, when we work with video files, when an MP4 is just a container, and it could be that you might have to convert it for sample rates or different codecs. And if you go to if we just go to like video support in Duendo Cubase, you can see a list of the different codecs and containers. So if you just go to this link right here in the Help Center in Steinberg, so make sure that when you have your MP4 file, that it's going to be like an H.263 or H.264 codec for those. So you may have to get a utility just to change the particular codec. Okay, so to see from Rob, welcome back from your trip. Thanks. Had a nice time. Got to see some friends while I was in Los Angeles. I'm getting a missing port message that when I open a project, it says that my UR44/1 Midi device out is unmapped. What should I do to resolve this? Thanks, Greg. So probably once you're in Cubase, it could be that if you go to your studio setup, and if you go to let me just look another area. Let's come over here to more options. So it could be your MIDI device manager. And then once you have your port here, so check there to make sure that, if you have like an instrument, like when you go to, okay, I want to install my D50, and my D50 is connected to this port, that maybe it's a setting kind of like that. So you may just have to say, oh, okay, for my external instrument that I defined to go out of my UR24C and just re-establish that connection again. All right, great to see Mark Rabin on the live stream. All right, great to see Brian Sawyer and Ted Springman. All right, so I just see Tanmay for a hide all plugins key command. So I think if you go to Windows, you could do a hide plugin Windows. So let's see if that is key command. Yeah, so if you go to Windows to close all plugin windows, there you could set a key command for that. So just establish a key command for that if that's what you want it to do. All right, you see Michael Teams wants people to hit the like button. Okay, so we have a question from Ted Springman. Does Cubase transmit CC messages on a MIDI track through VE Pro to shape the sound of virtual instruments in Second Computer? So Cubase will just send out that MIDI CC message to the particular track. So it could go out to a VE Pro rig or go out to an external instrument. So yeah, Cubase would definitely do that. All right, so we just see a question from Tame. Any news on when eLicenser will be discontinued? So nothing that's really been announced yet. So I think we may, I don't know what the exact time frame is. I know that they're working on new solutions, but they haven't shared with me any details on kind of the new solutions. Okay, so just see when I use Cubase 11, the CPU meter goes red all the time. I open up the same project in 10.5 or 10 and nothing. So there could be a lot of variables, but generally it's pretty consistent between the different versions. So I'm not sure if maybe you're running, different latencies on a particular, maybe you're running different latencies in different versions. Okay, so I see from James says, thanks for the help. My question is, sometimes my project ruler starts at bar 2. How can I set it back to bar 1? Okay, so let's say if we were starting we see right here at measure 1, so this is probably a display offset. So you go to your project menu to project setup, and you'll probably see a display bar offset. So right now I have this starting at measure 2. So go to your project setup, and you can do that by Shift S, and you'll see your display bar offset. Set it probably from to 0 and hit OK, and then you'll have measure 1 back. All right, so All right, so it says, hello, Greg. I have trouble with templates as my computer crashes. Is there a way to have the track archives feature to set up folders like for bass, drums, etc.? So really all you have to do if you wanted, if you wanted to take, each of the different files, some people do this and will just disable tracks and then save the template and enable tracks as needed. You could also take these particular tracks and go to export selected tracks. And once you go to export selected tracks, they could then be imported as through a track archive. So you could do that. All right. I'm going to post the live stream or Zoom meetup link one more time here. And we'll get started in maybe about 12 minutes. I know we had some questions that were sent in, so let me get to those. So one of the questions was how to take a MIDI part in the logical editor and double it up an octave. All right, so let's see if I remember how to do this. So I'm going to go to my logical editor under MIDI. And we're going to say type is equal to notes. I think we want to just say to insert. And we're going to say value 1. I want to add. So value 1 is pitch. And let's add 12. So if I did this right, let's see if I remembered it. Yeah. So we'll say, so what we want to do is under function, choose insert, type is equal to note, and we want to take value 1 of a MIDI note message as pitch, and we want to add 12 to that. So if I want to choose subtract 12, at this point I could select these group of notes and it will apply it, copy it down an octave and double it. All right. So let me go to some of the other questions that were sent in. Thanks for all the great questions. Looking forward to seeing everyone on the live stream. Okay, we covered that one already. Okay, we talked about this before a bit. I never got a definitive answer. So here's my issue. I've created a project and I have a tempo track in that project. I share the project with a friend who just has Elements. I'm on Pro. Obviously, Elements doesn't have the tempo track visible as a track in your project. So it, I think, deletes it. Or because when I get it back, the tempo track is gone. But when I Command T, I can see the tempo track in a new window. How can I get the actual track back from my pro setup as a track in a project? All the best. All right, so let's say I will just do a new project here. Sorry for hitting my mic. And I will add a tempo track. Okay, so I have my tempo track and we're going to save as tempo to Elements. Okay, so I'll open up Cubase Elements. I think I may have Elements 10.5. Okay, so open up our project. All right, so now we're in Elements, and the only thing was there. So I think in Elements, if we go to Project and we open up our tempo track, it's still there. So let's say I now save this particular project. So I'll change it to tempo from Elements. And save. I'll close Cubase Elements. And I will just come right over here. So, the information, while there isn't a tempo tracking in Cubase Elements, you do have the, on the project window, you can just simply, open up the tempo editor. So let's go to today's date. So tempo from Elements. And then the tempo changes that we just had are automatically showing up here. So you may just have to add a tempo track, and then it will should just kind of pop right up for you. Okay, so we have a question from Taylor Sapp. Okay, how can I get floating windows, Media Bay, and Loop Browser to stop playing when I drop a loop into the project? When I play the project, the preview continues to play with the play controls turned off. When I place preview into stop, it stops until I play the project again. I have to close window to get it to stop. I would like to be able to keep the window open for using additional loops after dropping one into the project. All right, so let's take a look. So let me open up my loop browser. All right, so let's do it from Media Bay. All right, so the question is, okay, so the preview continues to play. So let's say, okay, it's previewing a loop and drop it in. So when I preview it, it stops until I play the, okay, so when I drop a loop into the project, when I play the project, the preview continues to play with, okay, so I think, okay, so let's say now when you, so it could be, Taylor, that this window is still active. So I think if you do this, you drop the loop in and then you hit play on the transport, that you hear both of them playing. It could be that this is still the active window. So try, and you could just hit the tab key, but try to hit the tab key so the project window is the active window. And then, so I drag this in. If this is still the active window and I hit play, I think we could have that kind of automatically play. But if I do this and this is my active window, I hit play, we don't have the loop in preview mode. So try to just change, and you can see the white outline. So if I hit the tab key, like the white outlines in the lower zone, it's now in the right zone or the left zone project window. So make sure that you have, maybe you just click in the project window as you drag to change the focus. And I think that will help with you. Okay, I see when exporting an MP3 with metadata, the copyright symbol that I placed in the album field has an A in front of it on the data display of the rendered file. This happened in 10.5 all time, but stopped in 11 until recently. Maybe it was 11.02 when it came back, not sure. How do I keep that from happening? I currently have to go into the file properties of the rendered file and make the change under the details tab. Okay, so let's give this a quick try. Okay, so I'll go to my Okay, so it says it has an A in front of it today to display the rendered file. This happens at 10.5 all the time, but stopped at 11. All right, so it says metadata. So exporting an MP3 with metadata copyright symbol that I placed in the album field has an A. So, all right. Okay, so I will go ahead and let's. Okay, I'm gonna add this to the queue. Okay, I'll add this to the queue. So. Okay, and I'll go look at the file. Okay, so let me just. All right, so it seems like the name, so maybe the artist isn't being seen there, but if you want to email me just a quick sample of what it looks like on your end, Taylor, you know, I think you have my email address, but you could just send it to clubcubase@steinberg.de. And the last question we had mailed in, is there a quick way to set all channel faders to 0 at once? So let me just add some audio tracks here. Okay, so let's see. I think So if I come here, let's go to, I'm going to hold down quick link, and then we could put this into absolute. And then I'm just, as soon as you move one, it'll automatically just move all of those particular files to the same value. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and start the Zoom meeting. So bear with me just for a second. I'm going to post the Zoom link one more time, and we'll have people kind of migrate over. And this is basically where we as users can meet each other, and other people could talk besides me. So I'm going to go ahead and post the link one more time, and I'm going to start the Zoom meeting, and I'll end the Hangout in just a couple minutes, but let me go ahead and start the Zoom. All right, so you see Jan and Uno. All right, so we have some more people migrating. All right, so I see Jan. All right. All right, some more people. All right, so I'll just show the meeting invitation on my screen as well. And for those people that want to migrate over, all right, we have John Hinchy. It's great. All right, so I'm just going to do a quick test here, and we'll see if everyone is able to migrate over. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end the live stream part, and I'm moving over to the Zoom. All right, so and we'll do the next live stream on Tuesday.